So, imagine a secret society where the ultimate prize isn't, a vault of gold or political power or like some ancient weapon.
Right.
The ultimate prize is literally just a simple worn out robe and a begging bowl.
Yeah, highly unassuming, like completely mundane objects. I mean, if you saw them in a museum, you would probably just walk right past them.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
But attached to these everyday items is, well, it's literally the secret to escaping mortality. It's the ultimate inheritance.
Right.
And it sets off this centuries-long chain of passing the baton in complete secrecy, under the cover of night, until one day the baton just completely vanishes.
It disappears.
Exactly. And today we are tracking down that lost baton. Welcome to the deep dive. We are unpacking a super fascinating text from 2011 by an author named Su Feng. It's titled The Subtle Dharma Gate of Life and Death.
And translated by Trans and edited by Kyer, we should add.
Right, exactly. And this text is just profound. I mean, it traces this ancient secret lineage of Zen Buddhism, completely redefines the concepts of mortality and time. And it actually offers 5 very specific and, frankly, pretty challenging steps to liberate yourself from the cycle of existence.
It really is a remarkable piece of writing. What's so compelling about Xu Feng's approach is how beautifully it bridges abstract, higher dimensional metaphysics with just highly practical daily psychology.
Yeah.
It doesn't just leave you floating in the cosmos. It forces you to actively question your own baseline assumptions about what life actually is, right here, right now, in your own mind.
Okay, let's unpack this, because before we can even begin to talk about how to escape life and death, we first need to understand the dramatic, centuries-long relay race of how this specific knowledge was passed down in the first place.
The history of it.
Right. The text sets the stage with this incredible origin story. It starts with Buddha Sakyamuni at the Lingshan Mountain Assembly, and according to the text, Buddha doesn't give some booming sermon to the massive crowd.
No, not at all.
He just holds up a single flower in his hand, and he smiles.
A completely silent gesture. I mean, he doesn't offer a lecture, no scriptures are read, no theological debates are sparked.
Yeah, and out of everyone there, only his first disciple, Mahakasyapa, actually understood why he did it. Mahakasyapa just gave a faint smile right back.
That's all it took.
Right. Then Buddha says something incredible. He says he possesses the true Dharma eye, the marvelous mind of nirvana, the true form of the formless, and this subtle Dharma gate.
Which is the title of the text, yeah.
Exactly. But the crucial part of his quote is that this understanding does not rest on words or letters, but is a special understanding outside of the scriptures.
Which is really the pivotal moment. It establishes this mind-to-mind transfer. Xu Feng is highlighting a fundamental paradox here,
Yeah.
The ultimate truth of existence cannot be read in a book or, captured in language.
Right.
It has to be directly experientially transmitted. It's akin to trying to explain the color blue to someone who has never had sight.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Right. You can use all the poetry and physics in the world, but until they experience it, the words are basically useless. So Mahakasyapa passes this experiential understanding to Ananda, who gives it to Shanavasa.
And this unbroken chain continues all the way down to the 27th patriarch of Buddhism, Prajnatara. And here is where the physical artifacts enter the story.
The robe in the bowl.
Yeah. Prajnatara gives this mind-to-mind transmission, along with that robe and begging bowl, to the 28th patriarch Bodhidharma. And he gives him strict instructions. He says, 60 years after I attain nirvana, I want you to take these 3 things from India to China.
Now, Bodhidharma fulfills that mission, right? He becomes the very first Chinese Zen Buddhist patriarch. The lineage continues in China. He passes the robe, the bowl, and the Dharma to the second patriarch, then the third, the fourth, and eventually to Master Hongren, who's the 5th patriarch.
Which brings us to a massive dilemma, because Master Hongren realizes that his true successor, the one who actually possesses the essence of mind, isn't his highly reputed, deeply admired professor, Master Shengxiu.
The obvious choice.
Right. The guy everyone expected. It's actually an unknown monastery handyman named Huining. It's like a high-stakes corporate succession drama where the CEO bypasses the Ivy League vice president to hand the entire company to the night janitor.
Wow, yeah.
Simply because only the janitor truly understands the company's ultimate vision.
I mean, think of the implications of that in a deeply hierarchical monastery.
Yeah.
The academic Master Shengxiu possessed all the scriptural knowledge,
Yeah.
right? He had the vocabulary.
Yeah, he knew the books.
But remember the origin of the flower. The teaching does not rest on words. The handyman, Huining, despite lacking the academic pedigree, possess the direct experiential realization of the subtle Dharma gate.
It's crazy.
It is. Academic knowledge in this context can actually be a hindrance if you mistake the menu for the meal.
I like that. The menu for the meal. But Hongren knows he can't just hand the robe over openly. There would be an absolute uproar among the monks.
Oh, a total rebellion.
Right. So he uses a trick. He addresses the monastery, telling them that the lives and deaths of mortals are matters of huge importance, and he asks for a stanza like a poem to prove who actually understands the essence of mind.
Yeah, he creates a meritocratic contest to veil his true intention. He needs the transition to appear earned in a way the scholars will at least have to respect, even if they don't fully comprehend it.
And Huining, the handyman, wins. He secretly receives the robe, the bowl, and the ultimate teaching of the Zen school, becoming the sixth and final patriarch of Zen.
The final one.
Because after Huining, the treasury of the true Dharma eye, along with the physical robe and begging bowl, were completely lost. The physical lineage was broken.
So, Wenving cheekily notes that he considers himself the seventh patriarch of Zen because he wrote 5 heavily weighted articles on Zen, this text obviously being one of them.
Which, okay, that brings me to a major question. If this entire teaching, as Buddha said, does not rest on words or letters, isn't it highly ironic that the author wrote 5 heavy articles about it?
Yeah, the irony is definitely there.
I gotta push back here. How can we possibly talk about something that fundamentally defies language? If the secret was a silent smile over a flower, why are we reading a manifesto? Is Willifeng just, I don't know, writing this for his own ego, claiming that 7th patriarch title?
Well, what's fascinating here is that Shufeng actually anticipates that exact criticism. He openly acknowledges the paradox.
He does.
Yeah, he explicitly states that if he were to truly tell it with words, he would be rebelling against the teachings of Buddha. He admits that by writing this down, he's really sliding over the water.
Sliding over the water, like skipping a stone across a deep lake. You can see the ripples on the surface, but you aren't actually touching the depths.
Exactly.
But if words are just ripples, how do we ever get to the depth? I mean, are we just wasting our time analyzing this text?
Not if you view the text as a catalyst rather than a container.
Okay, what do you mean?
The words point to the truth. They are not the truth itself. Think of text as a map. Staring at a map of a mountain isn't the same as climbing the mountain, right? But it does help you find the trailhead.
But you still need the map.
Shufeng emphasizes that whether you can actually be liberated from life and death ultimately depends on your own level of practicing Tao, your own destiny, and what he calls your root of wisdom. The text can only guide you to the edge of the water. You have to be the one to dive in.
Wow, okay, so the physical robe is lost, the begging bowl is gone, and words can only act as a map. But knowing the lineage doesn't actually solve Huineng's problem.
No.
He had the bowl, he had the robe, but what was the actual knowledge he was guarding? Because if the physical items are gone today, the only thing that matters to us is the metaphysics. What actually is the subtle Dharma gate?
Well, according to Shufeng, it starts with a complete redefinition of the word life itself.
Right. And we should probably specify, if you're just listening, he writes life in all capital letters in the text.
He does. He is drawing a hard line between biological existence, what we typically call life, and the fundamental essence of life.
Yeah, Shufeng makes a massive core assertion here. He says basically, there is no life or death in life, capital L-I-F-E.
Right.
He says that what we see as life and death in the physical world is merely an illusion. It is just an evolved deduction of the carrier of life.
It's a pretty radical perspective shift. The text argues that life itself has nothing to do with time, like it has no limitations of time and is beyond all ages. And to explain how this works, Shufeng introduces the concept of non-material structure.
Non-material structure.
Yes. He states that the nature of life is a non-material structure, and that this underlying structure dictates the physical form rendered by life in our dimension.
So to use like a modern analogy, the non-material structure is like the source code of a software program, right?
Okay.
And our physical bodies are just the temporary graphics rendered on the screen.
That's a great way to think about it.
The code exists whether the monitor is turned on or not.
Exactly. And building on that, the text introduces the mechanism that writes the code, which is consciousness. Consciousness originates from this non-material structure, and in turn, it controls it.
So it's a loop.
Yeah, Zwifeng puts it very plainly. Human consciousness makes people. Animal consciousness makes animals. And if you develop your consciousness to that of a celestial being or a Buddha, then you will become exactly that.
Wow.
Your mental state is not just a byproduct of your brain. It is literally the architect of your form.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, because if life is just a non-material code beyond time, then what is death?
Right.
Swaffing describes death not as an end, but as life transformation. It's a cycle of reincarnations. He says life travels from one dimension into another, from one world into another, through what he calls the gate of life and death.
A literal transit point between states of rendering.
Yeah. So if I'm understanding this correctly, it's just walking through a doorway. To the people standing in the room you just left, you are dead. You're gone. But to the people standing in the next room, you've just arrived. You're born.
Yeah, and if we take your doorway analogy a step further, it's not just that you walk into a new room, you literally become the physics of that new room.
Oh, interesting.
The phenomenon of death is entirely dependent on which side of the doorway you are observing from. The field left behind perceives a loss like the rendering has stopped on their screen. The new field perceives a beginning. But the life itself, the consciousness walking through the door, never cease to exist.
Okay, this really ties into the Buddhist concept of emptiness that Shuofeng references.
Yes, absolutely.
The text states that all dharmas are marked with emptiness. And for anyone not steeped in Buddhist philosophy, dharmas in this specific context means every single phenomenon, every object, every concept in the universe.
Everything.
Yeah. Shuofeng says all these dharmas don't begin or end. They don't decay or die. Bodhisattvas attain nirvana and freedom from this cycle by dwelling without what he calls thought coverings.
And thought coverings is the linchpin of this entire philosophy. In true emptiness, there are no forms, feelings, or impulses. No eyes, ears, noses, or minds.
It's total detachment.
It is the complete absence of these sensory and mental attachments, these thought coverings, that frees a bodhisattva from being made to tremble. They overcome what upsets them, and in doing so, they attain nirvana. They are finally free from the endless cycle of bouncing between rooms.
Okay, I have to pause and push back on this again.
Sure.
Because if you're listening to this on your commute right now, you might be rolling your eyes at the idea of multidimensional travel and non-material structures.
It sounds like sci-fi.
Exactly. The text acknowledges that we mortals have what it calls fleshy eyes in mortal stocks, meaning we can't see these higher dimensional spaces, so naturally we aren't convinced. But my question is, isn't this just a very convenient excuse?
What do you mean?
Like, oh, the multidimensional worlds exist, you just can't see them with your fleshy eyes. Isn't that just a philosophical loophole for why we can't scientifically prove any of this?
Well, sensory limitation is a biological fact, not just a philosophical loophole.
Okay.
I mean, our fleshy eyes only process a tiny fractional sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah.
We cannot see ultraviolet light. We cannot see infrared light. We can't see Wi-Fi signals passing through our bodies. Yet our instruments prove they are absolutely real.
That's true.
Shuofeng is arguing that our biological hardware is simply not tuned to the frequency of these higher dimensions.
I buy that we can't see infrared, sure.
Right.
But asserting there's a whole celestial dimension just because we have optical limits is a huge, unscientific leap.
It is a leap. But Shuofeng isn't asking for blind faith in the destination. He's asking for a radical restructuring of the origin point, which is your consciousness today.
Okay, unpack that.
This philosophy shifts the entire focus of existence away from being paralyzed by the fear of an absolute end. Instead, it forces you to take total responsibility for the structure of your consciousness right now. Because if human consciousness makes humans, your current mental state is actively dictating your next form. You are writing the code for your next rendering. Which brings us to the most grounded, practical part of this entire deep dive.
Yeah, the how-to.
We've talked about secret robes, multidimensional doors, and non-material code. But since you and I do have fleshy eyes and we can't easily perceive these higher frequencies, what is the actual step-by-step guide to achieving this liberation?
Right. How do we manipulate the non-material structure while trapped in a material body?
Exactly. And the text promises it is easy to verify if you just follow the guide step by step. It identifies 5 specific barriers, 5 hindrances that keep us trapped in the samsara, the endless cycle of life and death.
And those 5 are greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and suspicion. We need to look closely at Shuofeng's specific definitions for these because they differ significantly from standard dictionary definitions.
They are quite pointed.
Yeah. He defines greed not just as wanting money or power. He defines it as the want to always possess more out of self-interest. It is the hoarding of energy, the refusal to let things flow naturally.
And anger is defined as the tendency to detest, to blame, and to envy.
Ignorance, and this one hits incredibly hard, is defined simply as the belief that you are always right and never wrong.
That is just a staggering definition of ignorance. It has nothing to do with the lack of education. It is the rigidity of certainty.
Wow, yeah.
Then there's arrogance, which he defines as self-importance, pretentiousness, disdain, defiance, and crucially, the lack of a gracious, cherishing heart.
And finally, suspicion. Being full of doubts, not facing the facts, being hypocritical, false, and self-deceiving.
Right.
The text states that overcoming these 5 specific traits will liberate you from the cycle of life and death. Sheffing notes that the reason is very simple, but putting it into real practice is incredibly difficult.
It requires a moment-to-moment vigilance that most people simply cannot sustain.
So, what does this all mean? I look at this list and I have to ask, wait, the grand secret to multi-dimensional travel, the secret passed down from Buddha to the night janitor, the ultimate key to escaping mortal death is just being a good person.
It sounds like it, right?
Yeah, isn't this just a universal ethical checklist? Be nice, don't be greedy, admit when you're wrong. Why is something as mundane as believing I'm always right, ignorance, somehow keeping me tethered to the mortal plane?
This raises an important question, and it goes right back to the mechanics of thought coverings and non-material structure.
Okay.
These 5 traits, greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, suspicion, they aren't just ethical faux pas or bad manners. In this framework, they are profound ego traps. They are the literal metaphysical weight that creates thought coverings.
I understand they are ego traps psychologically. But you are saying my refusal to admit I'm wrong literally stops me from dimensional travel.
Yes.
How does a psychological trait have physical or metaphysical mass? Are we talking about a literal frequency shift?
Because in Lifechanyuan framework, psychology is metaphysics. Your thoughts are the architects of your non-material structure.
Okay.
Think about the physics of the doorway analogy. You cannot step through a doorway to a higher, lighter consciousness if your structure is anchored by heavy, rigid code.
Oh, I see.
If you're constantly blaming others, which is anger, or if you categorically refuse to admit you might be wrong, which is ignorance, you are actively solidifying your current ego. You are reinforcing the very mortal stock that keeps you tuned to this specific heavy dimension.
So by insisting I'm always right, I am building a thought covering so dense that it traps me in the human rendering?
Precisely. They aren't just bad habits, they are the architectural building blocks of a mortal consciousness. Greed creates a gravitational pull toward the self. Arrogance isolates you from the flow of the universe. Suspicion creates cognitive dissonance that fractures your non-material structure. You literally cannot possess the consciousness of a celestial being or a Buddha while simultaneously clinging to self-deception and disdain. The frequencies are entirely incompatible.
That completely reframes the entire concept. You can't take the heavy baggage of arrogance through a doorway that requires total emptiness.
Exactly. The dimensions simply won't align.
The simplicity of the list really is deceptive then. Conquering those 5 traits isn't about being polite. It's the hardest metaphysical work a human being can do because it requires completely dismantling the ego's survival mechanisms.
It is the ultimate unlearning. You are systematically stripping away the code that makes you human to allow a higher code to render.
Bringing this all back to the ultimate cosmic stakes of our deep dive today, we've gone on quite a journey.
We really have.
We started with a silent smile over a single flower at a mountain assembly. We followed the secret passing of a physical robe and a bowl all the way to an illiterate monastery handyman who understood what the scholars didn't.
Right.
We uncovered the realization that biological death is just an illusion, a multidimensional doorway dictated entirely by the structure of our own consciousness. And it all comes down to the brutal daily practice of conquering our own greed, anger, ignorance, arrogance, and suspicion.
It's a profound journey. But before we wrap up, we really must bring up the author's chilling final caveat.
Oh, right.
Feng leaves us with a stark, uncompromising warning. He says that liberating yourself from this current cycle of life and death is actually only part of the battle.
Wait, what do you mean? What's the other part?
You also need to be acutely aware of where you are going after you cross through that gate of death.
Okay.
Because, as the text explicitly states, if your non-material structure is weighed down by those 5 hindrances and you head to the lower world, you will be miserable. Liberation from this specific human dimension doesn't automatically guarantee you step into a better one. If you die full of anger and suspicion, your consciousness will render a dimension that reflects that anger and suspicion.
Which is a terrifying yet highly motivating thought. It means the work doesn't stop. And there is no cosmic safety net that just makes everything okay when your physical body shuts down.
No safety net at all.
And that leaves us with a final thought for you to mull over as you go about your day. If UFing's framework is accurate and your consciousness literally dictates your biological and spiritual structure, like, if human thoughts make humans and Buddha thoughts make Buddhas, what kind of architecture are you building in your mind right this second?
It's the ultimate question of radical responsibility.
Yeah, it really is. Based on the thoughts you entertained today, the way you handled your anger when you were, cut off in traffic, or your arrogance in a meeting, or your suspicion of a friend, which side of that multidimensional doorway are you preparing to walk into? Will you be carrying the crushing weight of your own ego, or will you be traveling light?
Something to think about.
Definitely. Well, thank you for taking this deep dive with us. It's been an incredible exploration of the subtle Dharma gate, and we hope it gave you a new lens through which to view your own mind. Until next time, take care and keep questioning the structure of your own universe.